I'm David Fleming from the Disciples Ignited YouTube channel, where we're focused on Jesus, advancing his kingdom, and preparing his disciples. Now, we're talking about revival outpourings that have taken place throughout church history. And in our previous video, we started talking about a great revival outpouring that took place in Wales. And it really, through church history, is centered a lot on the ministry of a young man named Evan Roberts. There had been an outbreak of an outpouring of the Holy Spirit just previous to the meeting that we're going to talk about today, when a young lady stood up in a prayer meeting and testified that she loved Jesus with all of her heart, and a great move of God started. But what took place through this young man named Evan Roberts is just absolutely phenomenal. We can only attribute it to the grace of God, how the Lord used him. He went to this prayer meeting, and he had been praying, of course, as I shared in last video, that he had been praying, directed by the Lord, for 100,000 souls to be brought into the kingdom. And he'd been praying, "Oh Lord, pour out your Holy Spirit as you have in previous times in Wales. Do it again, Lord." Well, he went to this prayer meeting, and he shared that he felt that there were four things that were very important that everybody needed to do if God was to have his way. First of all, put away unconfessed sin. Second, put away any doubtful habit. Third, obey the Holy Spirit promptly. And then fourthly, confess Christ publicly. Well, when he did this, just as when that young lady stood up and testified of her love for Jesus, and the immediate effect was everybody was just caught up in this outpouring of the Holy Spirit. The same thing happened when Evan Roberts began to share those four very basic, very important things that needed to be done. 17 people responded to his appeal and gave their lives to the Lord and confess their sins. But what happened was the Lord just began to compound this outpouring of the Holy Spirit, and literally the meetings began to take place throughout Wales, and lost people turned to the Lord in thousands. Now listen, Wales is not that big a country, and especially not in Evan Roberts' day. To say that thousands began to come to the Lord is just phenomenal. In fact, listen to this. 70,000 came to the Lord in 2 months. By the time 5 months had passed, 85,000 had come to the Lord. And over 100,000 people came to the Lord in 6 months following that initial prayer meeting. The revival ignited a spiritual revolution wherein people, their lives were being changed dramatically. Let me read to you this account that I got from one of my books of revival. Speaking of the Wales outpouring, taverns closed for lack of business. Crime dropped dramatically, leaving the police with little to do. People paid old debts and made restitution for thefts and other wrongs. There was even a work slowdown in the coal mines as the mules began to learn a new language of the converted murderers. See, the coal workers used to curse at the mules, telling them to get going. But they didn't curse anymore. And the mules didn't know what to do. So they had to learn the new language that these coal miners were using without cursing. News of the revival spread to other countries, and Christians were stirred throughout the world to pray for the Lord to do in their nation what he was doing in Wales. Oh, there's so much more to share, so be sure to listen tomorrow.